Hello, my name is Vincent, and welcome back. In this episode, we're going to be taking a look at the first half of my Imperial Guard Epic 40k collection, here at Bunker 6. When you think of the Imperial Guard, you think of numbers, but sometimes numbers just isn't enough, and that's when the Titans have to step in. And what you're looking at right now is a Lucius pattern Reaver Titan released by Forge World in 2004. The initial price was £18, there was one of two designs, and they were both sculpted by Will Hayes. And the next series of models that look very similar to each other are the Warhound Titans that were also sculpted by Will for Forge World. These Warhound Titans had the same torso and leg arrangement, but had multiple weapon loadouts. These include the Warhound Inferno Gun, the Warhound Turbo Laser Destructor, the Warhound Plasma Blast Gun, the Warhound Vulcan Mega Bolter, and last but not least, the melee weapon that came in the form of the Warhound's Feet. Once again, my apologies, these models are half finished and half started and half assembled and not assembled at all. This is just to show you what I have so far and what we'll be working on in the future. All of these Titan models will be rebased with third-party resin bases, where they'll be walking through ruins or through destroyed cityscapes, just to give them an extra flavor. And as previously mentioned, these will be decked out in a desert theme paint job. And here are the aforementioned weapons in a little baggie. They will be magnetized in the future. In 2004, these models would have cost you £18 each, and you'd have been able to order them directly from Forge World. And sticking with the early 2000s Games Workshop material, we have an Imperial Guard character pack. This is cast in white metal, and features some more detailed models than the previously plastic sprues that they would have come on. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the YouTube commenters JMac and Black Country Soul for their input in helping me understand the rationale behind why GW would re-release models in white metal when they already had them in plastic, and it seems to make a lot of sense. And after 20 years, Epic was starting to be wound down by Games Workshop and was relegated to a specialist game, such as the likes of Mordheim, Blood Bowl, Inquisitor, Warmaster, and Battlefleet Gothic, just to name a few. And I'm sure, if you're familiar with Games Workshop, you're familiar with how most plastic models are released, and they are released on a sprue. Now that's all well and good when you're releasing a kit, but when you're trying to release specific models, you don't necessarily want all the other models that are attached to the sprue. And as the YouTube user Black Country Soul informed me, this is most likely why we have these white metal models that I now am showing you on camera. You'll also notice that my lighting has been ramped up since previous episodes, and this is because I had a big issue with the lighting when I was doing my previous edits. There just wasn't enough light hitting the models, but this has really helped. Apart from when the models are primed in black, I still have difficulty showing them on camera. And here we have 4 stands of the Imperial Guard Support Squad. And 5 support squads are armed with far more heavy weapons than an ordinary Imperial Guard squad, and as a result can lay down considerably more long-range firepower. Often these support weapon teams are distributed within the force at squad or platoon level, however it is not uncommon for groups of heavy weapon teams to be organized into specialist fire support units such as these. Now we have a partially assembled Warlord Titan. I love these models, as I've already explained in my previous completed projects video, but here is one that is half finished. It will be, of course, finished in a future video. And if you're wondering, this desert theme that I keep on speaking about is currently an AS-15 US Air Force Tan released by Tamiya Paints. Moving on, we're now looking at the Imperial Guard Manticore, specifically the triplex foul pattern version of this tank. They have 4 rocket launchers on the top, and it also has a heavy bolter and is classed as an armored vehicle. You will notice that the rockets are all different colors and different materials. Some are made of white metal, some are actually made of epoxy. This is because I don't actually have all of the rockets to hand, and I'm having to recast many of them from epoxy. And you can see here that in this instance the rockets are missing entirely. Now I could leave them like that as if the rockets had already been launched, but I've already decided that I prefer the models with the rockets attached, so we'll be remaking those in the future. And while we're on the subject of Manticores, these are some slightly sketchy metal recasts of the original Brian Fawcett sculpts of the Manticore for Forge World. Now at the time I would have had no idea about the legitimacy of such models. Obviously I now know that these are recasts, but they're good recasts, and I actually do have a bunch of the resin ones too. Now I love these models. These are the 1997 release Imperial Guard Hydras, the Metallicus pattern. What a great name. And once again, it's just got that glorious detail on the side with the little fabric rolls and the netting. It's just lovely sculpt all around. These 1997 releases are just superb. And if you're new to the hobby and you're just familiarizing yourself with the myriad of tanks that the Imperial Guard or Astra Militarum have to offer and wondering why the barrels of these guns are facing up in the air, it's because it's an anti-aircraft tank, or affectionately known in the Imperial Guard as the flak tank. And these are manufactured on hundreds of forge worlds and is armed with 4 long-barreled autocannons linked to a predictive sensor array and tracking turret, and it lays waste to its enemies with 600 explosive rounds a minute. Now we have the Imperial Guard Griffin, a short-range support vehicle designed to provide Imperial Guard infantry companies with their own organic self-propelled artillery. The Griffin has fallen out of favor with many Imperial Guard regiments in recent years due to its comparatively short range when compared to the other dedicated motorized artillery units. Nonetheless, the Griffin still has its supporters, and it remains popular as a cheap infantry support unit. And as a sculpt, once again, these 1997 models can do no wrong in my eyes. The other great thing about these fabric rolls and additional details is it gives you that opportunity to add a little bit of color and a little bit of pop that would otherwise be missing on a blank-sided tank. So when you have a tan model tank like this, you can make the fabric rolls a green or a cement-colored grey, just to give the model a bit more visual appeal while on the battlefield. And what timing, with the Killzone release of certain men who like walking around in gas masks all the time. Here are my Siege Regiment Ragnarok tanks. And why does this rarity excite me so? Well, they were only printed for a year from what I can ascertain, from the year of 2004 to 2005 for the supplement Epic Swordwind. Now, Epic Swordwind in itself is very interesting. It is also very rare. Trying to find one of these, you're going to be probably looking in the price of $30 to $100 depending on the condition of it. It is a 81-page softback book that is supposed to complement the Epic Armageddon rulebook. This book covers the Eldar Swordwind of Biltan, the Feral Orc Hordes, and the Baron Siege Masters of the Imperial Guard Regiment. Here we have a series of Lehman Russ tanks. They have all the different types of add-ons and details that you'd expect from the 1997 release. And some of these details include a camouflage turret, or a sandbagged hatch opening, or a very well-placed jerry can of fuel. And these compounding details really help bring out all the individual personality on these tiny tanks, which is really nice when you're at a distance from them on the tabletop. Coming into focus are the Imperial Guard Chimera. These are the Armageddon pattern variants, and the models on the left even have a wonderful extra touch, which is in the form of the Hunter-Killer missiles just sticking out the left side of the turret. And look at the little details on the back here, the little sandbags and jerry cans, just wonderful as always. And sometimes when bullets just aren't enough, you have to kill it. Kill it with fire. And that's when you'd bring in the Imperial Guard Hellhound. The Hellhound, as I'm sure some of you will know, is a modified version of the Chimera tank. I should also probably mention this is the Griffin 4 pattern tank specifically. And the Epic Armageddon rulebooks describe these tanks as having the ability to douse a target in gallons of burning fuel, where there is little protection against an attack when it incinerates its troops and cooks its crews inside their vehicles. Delightful. Here we have some Forge World Hydra platforms, created once again by Brian Fawcett. Back in 2004, a pack of 3 of these would have cost you only £5. Heartbreaking. The only thing is, I'm in a bit of a bind about all of my platform models because I'm not sure if I want to base them or not. I don't mind with the infantry because obviously they need to have bases, but when it comes to models like these, such as the platforms, I'm still really torn as to whether they need bases or not. Here we have the triplex pattern Imperial Guard Death Strike tank. What an excellent model. When you got a missile like that on top, you know you mean business. And what does that missile do? It's a Titan killer. It's only one shot, but when it's this size, you kind of only need one shot really. These are the Imperial Guard Basilisk Tanks. The Basilisk is the most commonly used artillery piece in the Imperial Guard army. In what was reputed to be one of the longest artillery duels during the Third Armageddon War, over 200 of these basilisks were engaged with Ghazghkull's Gargant construction yard deep in the Blackfire Mountains for 3 weeks. Constantly under fire from the Orcs' own heavy batteries, the 3 battalions of Steel Legion's 7th Artillery kept up a persistent exchange of shells day and night for the entire duration of the assault. Now we are once again heading back to Forge World to see some more of the prolific work by Brian Fawcett. In this instance, we are looking at 3 epic 40k Bane Blades in the Lucius pattern. In the bag we have a Warhound class Scout Titan, but this is an updated version of the Adeptus Titanicus version from the 1980s. This is a very hard model to come by. Once it's on eBay, it's gone pretty much straight away. Now theoretically I'm cheating here because I should be including this in the Aeronautica Imperialis video, but I decided because this particular model doesn't have wings, I would include it in my Imperial Guard army video instead. This is the heavy flat cannon platform, which theoretically could be used in a game of Epic 40k, but I haven't found any rules for it anywhere. Interestingly enough, the sprue actually has not got a Forge World name on it, but actually a Games Workshop name. Here we have the Baron Siege Master Thud Gun and Rapier Gun emplacements, and these are both the Krieger pattern variants. If you want to find more information on any of the Baron Siege Master models, it is all available in the Swordwind Epic 40k supplement book. Now, these next models are slightly confusing for me because they have the same artwork in 2 different rulebooks with different names. In the Swordwind supplement, these are referred to as Imperial Guard Sappers, and in the Epic Armageddon book they're referred to as the Imperial Guard Stormtroopers. And here we have the infantry that actually belong to the Thud Gun and Rapier bases. They're either holding a mortar that they're about to put into the Thud Gun, or they're overseeing the Rapier laser. And if you like these Krieg pattern models, good luck finding them. They are exceptionally difficult to get hold of due to the fact that they only had a runtime of less than 2 years. These are the 1997 edition Sentinels. One of them has a head missing, but we will recast that and add it onto that model at the back eventually. And like all the 1997 sculpts, these are once again fantastic models, but I feel that the fully enclosed cockpit of the 2004 edition makes a little bit more sense. I wouldn't really want my Imperial Guardsman's head sticking out the top like that in the grimdark future of the 41st millennium. And talking of heads sticking out, as you can see there is a head missing on the back model, but I will be fixing that by doing some recasting. And one of the most unique models I have is this, as I cannot find any information about it in any rule books. It is a Cadian Saber Platform. I'm assuming it has something to do with the first edition of Aeronautica Imperialis. And I'd love to hear from you if you have any additional information on this Cadian Saber Platform. And finally, we have a trio of super heavy tanks, once again produced by the exceptionally talented Brian Fawcett, and this is a series of the Epic Storm Sword tanks. And a little PSA, if you're new to this hobby and you've never worked with resin before, please always wear a mask if you're doing any sanding and filing, and it's highly recommended that you actually wet the models so the dust clumps together and doesn't fly around in the air. This resin material is toxic, and you want to avoid it as best as you possibly can. Well, that was the first half of the Imperial Guard army. Yep, the first half. We've got to have another episode dedicated to the second half. And if you're not done so already, maybe consider subscribing so you don't miss out on that episode. And all the future episodes, actually. We got the Orcs coming up next. Then we're going to be doing some Adeptus Titanicus, Battlefleet Gothic, Aeronautica Imperialis, some terrain building, and some painting tutorials as well. It's going to be fabulous. I also want to say a quick thank you to all of the new subscribers, and I also am really enjoying the comments. It's been great having a dialogue with you all. So, I've been Vincent, and until next time, this is Bunker 6.